Welcome to this explainer. We really live in a golden age of television displays. You walk into a store, you pick out this gorgeous razor-thin 4K screen, bring it home, and mount it proudly, right there in your living room. It's your window to the world. But today, we're going to look at the somewhat jarring reality of what that screen is actually doing behind the scenes. Because while you're sitting there looking at it, your everyday smart television is actually acting as an invisible, highly sophisticated data harvesting node right inside your home. Which brings us to the real question of the hour. I want you to pose this to yourself right now. When you kick back on your couch, you finally relaxed, and you watch your TV, who exactly is watching you? Well, it's time to break that illusion of living room privacy. Today, we're completely unraveling the mystery of the Trojan horse sitting right there on your entertainment stand, and we're unpacking the academic research and the real legal battles that expose a massive, industry-wide surveillance apparatus. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand why your TV is tracking you in the first place, we first have to understand what I call the business flip. For decades, the television industry was incredibly straightforward, right? Companies manufactured screens, you bought the screen, and that was the end of the transaction. But we are living in a vastly different reality now. The physical hardware, that sleek glass panel you just bought, is no longer the primary product. You are. The screen has essentially become a subsidized delivery mechanism for surveillance. To prove just how drastic this shift really is, consider a truly shocking statistic. A few years ago, it was widely reported that Vizio, literally one of the largest and most popular TV manufacturers out there, actually made more profit from selling their customers' viewing data than they made from selling the physical televisions themselves. Let that sink in. They're essentially subsidizing the upfront cost of the TV hardware by monetizing your attention, your habits, and your viewing data on the back end. So how exactly are these massive companies pulling off this huge industry-wide shift? Well, the culprit is buried deep inside the television's architecture. Now, to be clear, it's not a literal camera peering out at you, and it's not some rogue third-party app you accidentally downloaded. The surveillance technology driving this entire data gold rush is hiding directly in the TV's hardware. It's built right into the chipset at the factory level. The technology is called automatic content recognition, or ACR for short. ACR is this documented, industry-standard, built-in system that just continuously captures, analyzes, and reports exactly what is displayed on your screen. In fact, academic researchers from University College London, UC Davis, and the Universidad Carlos III de Madrid described it perfectly. It functions exactly like a Shazam for video. But unlike a music app on your phone that you manually open to identify a catchy song, this ACR system never, ever turns off. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how completely invisible and continuous this extraction process is to the user. Let's walk through the exact steps. Step 1. The ACR system takes these tiny, periodic snapshots of whatever is rendering on your screen. Step 2. It matches those visual snapshots against a massive centralized content library to identify exactly what is playing, literally frame by frame. And finally, Step 3. It compiles these viewing fingerprints and sends them right back out of your house to external servers. And if you're wondering how relentlessly this system operates, get ready. According to a 2024 academic study presented at the ACM Internet Measurement Conference, researchers found that Samsung smart TVs generate consistent network traffic, sending these data fingerprints to external servers as often as every single minute. Yeah, you heard that right. Every minute you're watching, a data packet is phoning home. It paints an incredibly precise second-by-second picture of your daily habits. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, well, I just use my TV as a dumb monitor. I plug in a streaming stick, an Apple TV, or my laptop, so I'm completely bypassing the smart TV's built-in tracking. Unfortunately, that brings us to what we call the HDMI illusion. There's this massive consumer misconception that simply plugging in external devices creates a safe, untracked viewing environment. So the crucial point is this. Because ACR operates at the chipset level, it literally captures whatever is rendered on the glass. It completely bypasses any assumed privacy of those external devices. ACR honestly doesn't care about the source. It tracks regular broadcast and cable TV, it tracks native streaming apps like Netflix, and crucially, it tracks laptops connected via HDMI, and even your gaming consoles. Basically, if it's glowing on the screen, the TV is sampling it and sending it out. At this point, you might be asking yourself, wait, how is this legal without my explicit permission to be surveilled? Well, welcome to the world of corporate camouflage. Manufacturers purposely avoid using a scary word like tracking. Instead, they hide these invasive, highly lucrative features behind deeply buried settings and delightfully vague terminology during your TV's initial setup process. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how consumer-friendly names are weaponized to completely obscure precise, continuous surveillance. Manufacturers use friendly marketing to mask the reality. Just look at the terminology. Samsung calls their ACR tracking viewing information services. LG brands their system as Live Plus, and they market it as this magical way to enable personalized content recommendations. But the reality? It's continuous, frame-by-frame tracking designed primarily to feed you highly targeted ads based on precisely what you watch and exactly when you watch it. But look, this isn't just some creepy tech feature that privacy advocates are complaining about on obscure internet forums anymore. The sheer scale and deceptiveness of this data collection have elevated this from a simple consumer grievance to a serious, active regulatory battle. The legal backlash has officially begun. In December of 2024, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton initiated a massive legal fight against a powerhouse list of major brands. We're talking Samsung, Sony, LG, TCL, and Hisense. The action? A major lawsuit alleging unlawful data collection based specifically on this exact ACR technology. So this proves that everything we are unpacking in this explainer is a documented, legally actionable fact. It's really happening. In fact, the legal filing gives the privacy stakes immense gravity here. Attorney General Paxton's office explicitly described this built-in ACR technology as an uninvited, invisible digital invader. Just think about the weight of that phrase for a second. Coming directly from a government legal filing, it perfectly captures how deeply this technology penetrates the sanctuary of our homes, entirely under the guise of providing us a better viewing experience. Now, before we wrap up, we need to transition to a secondary, yet honestly equally concerning issue. We've thoroughly covered how the screen tracks your eyes, but we also need to talk about the microphone mystery and how these smart TVs handle the ambient audio in your living room. Let's move to and see how this builds on what we just learned. We have to look at the microphones built into most modern TVs. As we all know, microphones exist for voice assistance. Now, manufacturers claim activation only ever occurs after you actually say a wake word. But privacy researchers point out a fundamental technical reality. For a device to reliably detect a wake word at all, some level of passive background audio monitoring technically has to be happening. So while ACR visual tracking is a legally confirmed fact, the technical necessity of passive listening adds another incredibly murky layer of potential privacy invasion. That's why privacy advocates strongly advise caution here too. So, we've seen how the business model of television has fundamentally transformed your screen. It went from a simple display into a highly lucrative data-gathering node. From continuous frame matching via ACR to the persistent questions surrounding passive microphones, the reality of the modern living room is pretty stark. So I leave you with this. The next time you sit down on your couch, grab the remote, and turn on your screen to learn about the world, what is it learning about you? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and stay curious.